If you like these videos, please check out my full course at www.lsat.totaltestprep.net with tons of clearly explained actual LSAT questions written by someone who's mastered test and helped others master it, and an evaluation period where you only pay if you want to continue.
Alright, in this video we're going to cover the basic combination games. So, what are the basic aspects of combination games? Okay, so the combination games will essentially require you to place groups in sequence. So, what are the characteristics of the movable and structural elements? What are the characteristics of the movable and structural interaction? And what are the characteristics of the rules? Okay, so let's take a look at some basic combination games. We have, in terms of the movable structural information, we have our game on the right. So we've got television shows 1, 2, 3, and 4, and each show has 2 guests. The guests are A through H, and the shows will air consecutively during the day from 1st to 4th. And A is second, and it's before B. Okay, so the way we can diagram that is we have down here underneath, as you see, for the movable and structural, I made the guests the movable, so that's the A through H, and I made the shows 1, 2, 3, 4 the structure. So you can see that they're consecutive. So we're told that there is sequence in time, and the guests don't have any particular order, so they're the movable. In terms of the rule, we did A subscript 2 dash B. So this is one of those more complex rules I'd mentioned in other videos because it involves both being assigned to a group, and involves a structural, or rather a sequential aspect to it. So the A is before B, but you know A is going to go into 2. So you could have also drawn an A underneath the 2 column or above the 2 column. I just decided to do it this way to show you this possibility. All right, so that's the game. So what are some basic aspects to the information? Well, you're always going to have one movable and one structural set, and the structural set is going to be both grouping and sequential. So that's what we have here. The 4 columns are the groups, the shows, they're the groups, but they're also in sequence because they're consecutive from 1st to 4th. So it's essentially groups in sequence. And then you'll generally have between 6 to 8 movable elements. So here we have 8 movable elements, and there's going to be, generally speaking, 6 to 8 because you'll have at least 3 groups most of the time, and at least 2 people per group. So you're generally going to have that, a little bit more information to work with in that sense. And the movable elements are actually similar to movable elements in the grouping games. So a common variation might be 2 subsets of 3 to 4 elements, and a more rare variation is what I call the combination sets, what we had seen in that video with respect to movable sets. A movable set which is a construct of 2 sets that are combined. Okay. Now, with respect, or additionally, we also have the structural set is generally going to be columns with the slots underneath. So generally 3 to 5 columns. Here we have 4 columns and there's 2 slots underneath. And the sequence, the relative left-right positioning of the columns is important because that's the sequential aspect of this combination. You've got the columns as groups, but they're in sequence. So who is in which column and where they belong, left to right, is important. A very common variation for this structure is days of the week. So you'll find that a lot when you find, sometimes it might not even be every day, it might just be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay, so with respect to the information, that's the basic information. With respect to the relationship, the movable structural relationship is actually similar to the basic grouping games. So the most common variation by far is where the number of spaces per group is actually indeterminate. Here it is determined. We know that there's 2 per group, but actually most commonly you won't know how many there's going to be per group. Spaces may actually be completely unknown, or a game may establish some sort of range of slots per group. And the movable elements themselves may also repeat. So you may not know how many per column, and there might be repetition. You might not know which ones will be repeating, how many repetitions, etc. And the groups do tend to be imbalanced. You'll have more in one group as opposed to another. The number of elements per group may be known, but actually this is less common. So what I have here, even though it's easier to just illustrate and present the basic logic behind it, it's actually a little bit less common. You'll mostly, so situations where you know exactly how many per column are not going to be as commonly found. Now, if there are slots per column that you know, if it is made specific, it's generally going to be 2. So generally speaking, you won't. But if you do know how many, it's generally going to be 2. And this ties back to the days of the week as well. A lot of the times when they have days of the week, they will have afternoon and in the morning and afternoon as a way of separating that. Although that is actually more commonly found in the complex games, which we'll get to in the next couple of lessons. Okay. With respect to the rules are going to be a combination of sequential and grouping games. So a common example is where the elements are assigned to groups, and then the groups are placed in sequence. And we kind of have a variation of that with the A2-B. So A is an element assigned to 2, but it's before B. So it's you're not told that they're before a particular group or something. You just know that A and B are in that relationship, but A is also in 2. And as you see here, the best way of dealing with this is to use subscripts, as you also encountered in complex conditional rules. So subscripts are a way of just being able to more efficiently incorporate as much information. Okay, so to summarize quickly, basic combination games will generally have you put 6 to 8 elements into 3 to 5 groups, with the groups being in sequence. The distribution is similar to basic grouping games, and the rules are a combination of sequential and grouping games.